Michigan almost lost to Bates Fundamentals, aka Eastern Michigan. 88-83 was the final score of that game. I kept doubling down and tripling down on Michigan first half money line in that game. And then I kept doubling and tripling down on Michigan money line to make the money back in the second half. Thank God they won. This is the actual game, because otherwise you would not be seeing me on your screen right now. This was a very concerning game in a lot of ways, and I'm very excited to get into it. Obviously, it was the Emoni Bates revenge game. Emoni pretty openly wanted to come to Michigan in the offseason. I believe that Juwan Howard essentially vetted him for 2 weeks in the offseason and wasn't sure if he was going to take him or not. Ultimately came to the conclusion he would not take Emoni Bates, probably due to just his personality. And then a month later, Emoni was arrested on gun charges. And then 2 months later, Amani's giving you 30 on your head and igniting an electric crowd at Little Caesars Arena and almost beating you single-handedly. So fascinating development for the Emoni Bates saga. I love it because I'm rooting for the kid. Bias aside, I'm a Michigan fan, but bias aside, that was one of the more fun things to watch that I've seen in college basketball in a very long time. What was your take both on Emoni and then on Michigan in result of this game?
Well, I was kind of on the side with you. Is I was just happy to see Emoni out there actually playing well for everyone that kind of got out of his corner and, took the chance to shit on him when he was down. I was pulling for him to kind of do something like this and have a performance like this. And that's the type of talent he is. So we're not completely surprised. On to Michigan, though. A couple problems I see. One, Terrence Williams cannot be the second best player on a good basketball team. That's number one for me. Number two, I don't know if you guys can check anybody or if you want to check anybody, because it seemed like Emoni and Farrakhan, those guys were able to get whatever they wanted. And three, Hunter Dickinson is Hunter Dickinson. That's a bad man. That's a very bad man.
He's still Hunter Dickinson, right? Like he
is
like
that. Like at the end of the day, like I forgot who the actual was on the play-by-play call, but they're like, oh man, Hunter's kind of been walking through this or going through the motions in this game at some points, and then you look up and he's got 30.
Yeah, he's very good, right? We knew that. This is no breaking news. Breaking news, Hunter Dickinson's really good. But in the offseason, we kind of said, like, no matter what happens, no matter how disastrous this team is, they have a high floor because they have Hunter Dickinson. And that played out exactly to a T in this game. Like, everybody was horrible except Terrence Williams. I'll push back on you a little bit. I think you're right about he can't be the second best player on a good team. Like, that needs to be Jett Howard most nights, or occasionally maybe Kobe Buffkin, or the disaster point guard. We'll get to that. But yeah, I mean, Terrence 18 and 11. And if he doesn't play well in this game, they lose the game. He shot 3 for 7 from 3. So, like, I will point at him and be like, it's not good that he's the second best player in a game like this, but he's capable, more than capable, of having a game like that can step up. And he did that in the NCAA tournament last year too. So I don't have problems with Terrence right now. Hunter's interesting to me. I think he played great. Obviously, I do agree with the announcer. He was floating a little bit early. He was also on the bench for 8 consecutive minutes in the first half and then played the whole second half, which is just a little odd. They have to figure out the bench stuff. But Hunter's not shooting threes this year is one of the more fascinating things. And I think, last year it was he wants to show off for the NBA type storyline, and he was stepping out more. But also that team needed him to step out more. Like, when he was on the floor with Moussa Diabate, you were going to pop Hunter and roll Moussa. And now we've got shooting, quote unquote, shooting around him. It doesn't seem like Hunter's interested in doing anything but just going and trying to get his points at the rim, which I think bodes well for this team. 31.7 rebounds. But you're right. They look like a really bad Iowa team. Like, they don't want to check. They can't check. And they need Hunter to just be the national player of the year every game to be relevant. And maybe he can do that. Like, if Hunter plays how he did in this game consistently, he's a consensus first team All-American. But I'm missing the dudes around him that like where's Jordan Bohannon, who can just light you up and get 25 in the backcourt? Where's the guys that are just dead eye 45% shooters from 3? Jett Howard is one, but beyond that, this Michigan roster is pretty ugly. The bench is non-existent. And I love Doug McDaniel, who led this team in assists again in 14 minutes, but everybody on the bench is a disaster right now, including Doug McDaniel.
I was say Doug also missed about 7 layups.
Well, Doug just makes everything harder than it needs to be. And I think like the weird thing is I trust Doug's IQ basketball wise. So I think he's just a little, sped up in his first week of college basketball. If this is still happening a month from now, I'll be concerned. But he's making shit happen and he's making really good reads. He just needs to make the easy play. And then I think he's pretty quickly into like 20, 25 minutes a game.
I think he saw someone who's tiny, but yeah, maybe I can see that. He definitely plays the game maybe a little too fast at this point, but at least it's like, I will say this, at least it's like a sign of life, a little sign of energy coming off the bench, because there's not much else coming off the bench in that department for you guys right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion on what Michigan needs to do with rotations happening. And I don't think there's any easy answers. Like it's easy to say, oh, just don't play certain guys, but he only played 10 guys. And
I'll say this, his son's not the answer.
No, he's not. But right now he's the 6th, 7th guy. So he's the only guy who attempts to defend, whether that's effective defense or not. He's the only guy who tries. They need more from Joey Baker. Would be my answer as far as the bench, and that hurts to say out loud, but Joey Baker had 4 fouls in 6 minutes in this game, so you had to start playing Isaiah Barnes. Isaiah Barnes should never play for Michigan this year. Joey Baker needs to be like a 20-minute guy who can back up every position, and then you can have Doug be the backup point guard, and you can have Terrace be the backup center, and then there's your 8-man rotation with a little bit of Jace sprinkled here and there when there's foul trouble. But if Joey Baker can't get on the floor, then all of a sudden disaster zone and Jace has to run around with the starters. My biggest concern, Cart, is one I'd love to talk in depth with you about. Jaelin Llewellyn is not good. And I'm going to get a lot of shit from Michigan fans on this because I essentially said we should not do this in the offseason. And the moment that this arose, that they essentially forced Frankie Collins out to bring in another transfer point guard, everyone accepted that as if it was this fantastic development. And everyone's pointing at Frankie's stat lines for a bad Arizona State team right now and laughing at them. And that's fine. He's turnover prone and he's a shot hunting guy on a really bad team right now. Maybe that's all he could ever be. Maybe it was never going to work at Michigan. But what I know is not going to work at Michigan is the transfer point guard thing. When you bring in a guy who has no ceiling of being a top 5 player at his position in the conference, you don't win titles. You don't win anything substantial with average point guard play. And I'm not even just in the framework of Michigan alone with Mike Smith, who is good, Devontae Jones, who was fine, and Jaelin Llewellyn, who looks bad to fine at best. Like, what's the best case scenario? Who's the best up transfer point guard any high major team in the country's had in the last 4 years? Name me one that's been an all conference guy. You can't.
What about one of the Baylor guys?
Like who? Flagler?
Or no, like Davion Mitchell? I'm pretty sure he transferred.
Where did he start at?
I might have to check that, but I keep cooking on your point though.
I just even though it's different to me because like Davion Mitchell was essentially brought in as like the shooting guard, right? They had a bunch of guards on those teams, and Davion started at Auburn, by the way. I'm talking about a pure mid-major dude who has to go up to the Big Ten level or above and run the show, because that's what Michigan asks these guys to do. They don't ask him to just be a rotation guy. They ask Jaelin Llewellyn to run the show. Jaelin Llewellyn looks horrible, and he looks horrible from a poise standpoint. Down the stretch of that game, in a 2-possession game, twice he attempted a shot or attempted a drive with 20 plus seconds on the shot clock. In a minute and a half left in the game, he turned it over that gave Eastern Michigan life. He missed a crazy off-balance layup that Hunter ended up cleaning up and putting back in. But if Hunter doesn't bail him out, it's like, what are you doing, dude? He's not a shooter. He's absolutely not a shooter. People want to say, oh, he had one really good shooting year last year. Yeah, he did. The rest of his career on crazy attempts, high volume attempts for his career, he's sub 40% from the floor. He's 32% from 3, and he's 70% from free throw. That's not a good shooter. for a point guard who has done a ton of attempts on his career, and he's missing free throws from Michigan. He hasn't made a three in his career at Michigan.
Everyone's missing free throws from Michigan, by the way.
I'm out. And this dude was supposed to be the second best player on this team. And through 2 games after the exhibition in game 1, when Jaelin did nothing, the narrative was, oh, that's a good thing that he's done nothing. Stock is up because, he just needs to bring the ball up court. And if Jet and Kobe can do everything, that's really good for this team. Guess what, people? This pissed me off more than anything, Cart. It doesn't have to just be one guy doing something. It doesn't have to be just 2. Everybody on the team can do things. Like, just because Jet and Kobe are really good, it doesn't make it better or good for the team that Jaelin Llewellyn's not doing things. Everyone should be a threat. On the best teams, everybody is a threat. And Jaelin Llewellyn is objectively not a threat right now. And I don't know if that's going to change, but I'm sick of it. I am just totally frustrated with the concept of, let's get this guy in for 1 season who's going to have a massive learning curve, who's going to take 3 months just to get comfortable, and then we'll see if he can maybe get to like 10 points, 3 assists again. Like, it reminds me of watching Tyson Walker from Michigan State last year, except Tyson actually made shots when he shot the ball, right?
I was going to say, when he did shoot.
Jaelin doesn't shoot and he doesn't make when he shoots. So,
well, maybe bright side, just 2 games in, he'll improve throughout the year, maybe.
I don't know. I need to see something. I need to see something quickly.
First of all, Spider-Man pointing meme, or that handshake meme, Tom Izzo and Greg Waddell, and then hating the transfer portal in the middle of that. Okay. Never thought we'd make that correlation. But the thing for me is that I thought that at worst, though, Llewellyn would be a guy who you could count on to like think the game through. He's like you mentioned that layup at the end of the game when they were up, I think like 2 or 1 or something like that, and he went to go lay it up with like 13 seconds on the shot, or I don't know, something crazy like that. Like, mentally, he's also not seeing the game right now. He's missing free throws. He's turning the ball over, not making shots. I mean, it's just no type of steadiness at the point guard position. And, the only thing I can think of is that you're wasting another year of Hunter Dickinson when you kind of giving him in a net point guard.
It's just horrendous. And look, this team can still be very good. I feel confident in that, but they're going to be good because Jet Howard's good or Kobe Buffkin's good. They're not going to be good because Jaelin Llewellyn becomes the 3rd best point guard in the Big Ten. He's not going to be that. And that's frustrating to me because I don't know, like, the alternative would have been you keep Frankie Collins. I don't know what Frankie's ceiling was. I know Frankie didn't make sense.
I'll tell you right now, Frankie can't shoot.
Well, are we sure?
Yes.
Shot 11 threes in their first game this year, made 4 of them.
Frankie cannot. Yeah, no.
Frankie made 4 threes in week 1.
He also had 7 points on 29 shots.
I'm not sitting here saying Frankie Collins is fantastic, but I don't know.
At least he can dunk.
Frankie Collins is more talented than Jaelin Llewellyn is, and you wrote off a guy that you would have had 3 more years of for a guy you're going to have 3 months of, who gets you. I mean, look, Jaelin finished with 12 points in this game because he had 8 free throws down the stretch, even though he missed 4 free throws. Essentially, Jaelin Llewellyn to me is a guy who's going to give you like 6 points, 2 assists a night. Reminds me of Jaron Simmons, Michigan, the year that Xavier Simpson finally took over for him midseason. Like, he's not the guy. The problem is this team doesn't have a guy other than Doug who's going to take the spot from him. And that's why I'm still at it. I think Doug does take the spot from him. I think if Doug just slows down, Doug takes this spot pretty quickly from him. So, God, it's a disaster, though, Cart. It's really bad. I'm so sick of watching mediocre guard play on Michigan teams. And it's year after year after year right now.
Yeah, and it sucks after having like that stretch of like when you just like couldn't miss with guards. Like, you guys just had guards year after year. So it's odd that you can't. I don't know. It's odd that Juwan can't get a point guard on that team. That's not out of the transfer portal. So if you're ranking those 3 right now, is it Mike Smith, Devontae Jones, and then Llewellyn's like clearly 3rd out of those guys?
Yeah, it is. Mike Smith.
That's bad.
Mike Smith was very good. Like none of this stuff should apply to Mike Smith, but
Mike Smith played with about four NBA
that's what
players.
I'm saying is anybody could play the Mike Smith role on that team. If you put Mike Smith on this team, I don't know what he looks like. He looks better than Jaelin Llewellyn, that's for sure. Devontae Jones was, I don't know, all over the place, but at least he was productive damn near every single game. Like, you didn't have to question Devontae Jones was going to go out and get you 10, 4, and 4. Like, Llewellyn might as well be a ghost. He's barely doing anything on the floor right now. So, and if that's your bar, Michigan fans, if your bar for your point guard is, oh, just don't be a disaster, then I can't disagree more with how we watch the game of basketball. Like, just stop having such a low standard of expectation for these guys. And look, at a certain point, this could repeat itself. Again, what are we going to do? We're going to play Jaelin Llewellyn 30 empty minutes a game this year, be an okay basketball team, not factor into the Big Ten. And then next year, Llewellyn's out to go play in, I don't know, Turkey. And Doug McDaniel can't be our starter because he's only played 8 minutes a game. Is that going to happen again? I mean, that's exactly what happened last year, right? We don't trust Doug. He's turnover prone. He can't shoot it. He's small. Better get Columbia's point guard next year, Cart. Like, should we start scouting Ivy League dudes right now? Should we do it?
I refuse to scout Ivy League basketball, but if you want to move forward with that, please do. Are you gonna be all right though? Like,
I'm in shambles.
I can kind of tell.
Listen, Emoni Bates almost ended me. Okay, and he's good. Respect to Emoni.
Emoni's good.
Emoni could have been in a Michigan uniform, Cart.
I mean, probably would have been nice. Actually, but okay. Would Emoni fit with that team?
Yes and no. But Emoni, the person, doesn't fit with any team except this Eastern Michigan team.
Oh, no. Emoni's great. Emoni's hugging coaches. Emoni's hugging teammates. He's an upstanding citizen.
So, remember last year when you and I were on the Emoni train at the beginning of the year, and one of our biggest reasons was we thought the dysfunction of Memphis basketball would oddly be similar to what Emoni had come up the ranks through with Bates fundamentals. We were like, he'll be comfortable in the chaos. So we were wrong, obviously. But tell me this Eastern Michigan team isn't actually what we were going for with that. Like, they've essentially allowed themselves to be Bates fundamentals in college. Like, they're playing the Emoni game. They're giving him the keys. They're saying, do whatever the hell you want, and we're going to treat you like our superstar, and that's fine. Like, it reminded me of watching Emoni in high school, and I think that's going to work in the MAC.
So Elgin Bates was right.
I think when you actually like cater everything to Emoni, it can work, at least at this level. Maybe not in a better conference, but yeah, I think it can work at this level.
I kind of like that angle too, because it might fuel our Penny agenda as well.
I mean, Penny also had Jalen Duren though, so like, I don't blame him for not building everything around Emoni. I don't know. I'm fascinated. I'm gonna love watching that Eastern team. I think he's gonna be really good. But no, even though I make jokes about he would be really good on Michigan, you can't take Emoni Bates if you're Juwan Howard. I mean, if the gun charge didn't show that enough, there was no way that was gonna happen.
Ivy League point guards only. Otherwise, hit the door.
What do you think Michigan finishes in the Big Ten now? Like, 1 week in, has this changed your frame? Because everybody had them third. Everybody had them in the same tier as Indiana and Illinois going into the season.
I'd probably still put them in the 3-4 range. Big Ten stinks.
Yeah, the Big Ten stinks. We'll talk about that. I'm dropping them a little. I think they're clearly behind Illinois and Indiana. I think Iowa's better than them. I think Purdue.
Yeah, I think I might have them. Shit, Purdue actually look kind of good.
I think Purdue's better than them. I think Michigan State could be better than them. We'll see.
Really?
Ken Pom has Michigan State ahead of Michigan now through 2 games. That's all it took.
Well, I guess that'd be a good time to transition to Michigan State really quickly here.